is prepared by the business analyst, and the prime thing is the SOW will have all these details. The SOW is issued by the customer, and it will have all these details, and these become input to the development of the project charter. So now the next important input is agreements. The agreement is nothing but the memorandum of understanding, contract, SLA, service level agreement. Service level agreement is a common terminology where it talks about availability time, how many users will be using the application, what would be the concurrent number of users. So these things are very important input to come up with the project charter, and also in order to define the scope, risks, assumptions, constraints. So agreements are an important input. The enterprise environmental factors and organization process assets, they are common input across most of the initiating and planning processes, understandably, basically because initially there is a lot of external factors that you have to factor into your planning and the initiating process group. So obviously enterprise environmental factors contribute towards that. When you talk about enterprise environmental factors, they are nothing but what external environment will affect the project as such, or the organization. It can be government regulations, it can be the organization structure as such, which might affect the project in terms of approvals and things like that. So these have to be factored in when you create the schedule as such. So those things are also taken care when you have to come up with the project charter. So because when you are dealing with schedules, budget and things like that. So from the PMP point of view, the enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets are two inputs which will be used in most of the planning processes, and this because this is initiating process which is before the planning process, they are an obvious input for these two processes. So organizational process assets are an important input because we are talking about we start creating each of the documents from a template, so that you don't reinvent the wheel. So you use a template and then tailor it to your project needs. So organization process assets are a main input, and the other reason, you might have some historical information or some lessons learned from previous projects, so you might want to reuse, and all these lessons learned might be a knowledge base which you probably will look up and leverage that experience from previous managers who have done this project. So now when you are developing a project charter, you obviously will need the help of senior management or managers who have done similar kind of projects. So their expert judgment is an important tool for you to leverage in your particular development of project charter, and you will convene these different managers, subject matter experts into a meeting or group discussion where you facilitate them to talk, so you can collect information and inputs from them. So that's where the tools and techniques for this particular process are expert judgment and facilitation techniques. So facilitation technique might be brainstorming, meeting, on any form of convening people together into one place and getting their inputs. So if your organization does not have the required capability to build a project charter for this particular project, consider that it's a niche area and you're the first project manager who's executing this particular project, you might involve a consultant to get their inputs. So that's where expert judgment might involve consultants or industry groups, project management office, or subject matter experts. So the contents of the project charter are high-level assumptions, high-level constraints, high-level budget, high-level schedule, project start, project end date, who is the project manager, who is the sponsor, the sign of the sponsor. Then what is the success criteria for this particular project, what is the communication channel, what is identified, and what is the stakeholder list. So all the knowledge area at a high level, there is an entry made in the project charter. From the chapter wise test that we have in our website, I would like to cover some